Mr Chairman.
The Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr Chairman, the member who's just preceded me sets a pretty stern challenge at this hour of the evening, but I'll attempt to respond. I think the fact that we have a bill before the committee tonight that's been 7 years getting to this point is, to my way of thinking, unsatisfactory, frankly, for a variety of reasons, but that's water under the bridge. But if I could just highlight the dilemma that she poses. As this bill goes through, and we already have an SOP that I've tabled amending some of its provisions because they need to be, I have a second bill, which is titled the number 3 bill, awaiting its first reading. And that process will continue. I'm of the view that what we are seeing, and it's my personal view only, is a fundamental change in the nature of the gaming industry in New Zealand. I actually put the words in New Zealand in deliberately, almost parenthetically, because I think the challenge for the future will not be in terms of how we regulate our domestic environment, because so much of our gaming opportunities will be offshore, through the internet or through a whole range of other technologies that it will be extremely difficult to control and to regulate. So to some extent, in passing legislation of this type and amending it and trying to keep it fit for purpose, we are fighting a little bit against history, because the big challenge is going to be the nature of the games that lie ahead. I recall being in this portfolio in the mid-1990s and also being the Minister of Revenue at that stage when internet gambling was first taking off and being approached by, quite properly, 2 very large international internet gaming providers wanting access to New Zealand domain names because we were seen as reputable. And the deal for New Zealand would be the name, and we'd negotiate a form of tax payment. Now, that never got beyond the drawing board for a variety of reasons. But even then, I think it was an early warning sign of the nature of the way in which this industry was going to develop and has in fact mushroomed over the period of the last 20 years. So the challenge, I think, is a twofold one. One is to try and regulate the terrestrial gaming environment within New Zealand as best we can and have legislation that is going to be fit for purpose in that respect. The second and more difficult one is to be, at the same time, keeping an eye on broader developments. Already we see challenges, you hear from time to time when a major sporting event occurs, for instance, the debate between the TAB and Centrebet over the odds that they offer. You see situations, we had occasions around the debate of the extension, and I don't want to reopen it, of the number of gaming machines at Sky City last year, about the relevance of that in the context of people who can actually go online in the privacy of their own home and gamble. So the point I'm trying to make, and I think the member would agree with me, is that this is very much, whatever we do and however frequently we amend the law, a holding operation in respect of an environment that is changing rapidly. If anyone had said to anyone in this House that 10 years ago their lives would be governed by one of these and that we would do all sorts of amazing things from one of these, I think we'd have thought that was pie in the sky. I read this morning, just apropos of that in a newspaper, that we're about to see all home appliances, jugs and teapots and all of those sorts of things, wired in such a way that you can charge your phone while you're using them. That's just shows you how these things are changing. So I can't give the member an absolute answer to her question. I acknowledge its significance, and I think our challenge is going to be that twofold one of making sure we have a proper, sustainable regulatory environment for the domestic terrestrial gaming scene, while at the same time making sure also that we do what we can to keep an eye on, monitor and ensure we have best practice in respect of offshore operations that we have very little.
Sorry to interrupt the Honourable Minister. The time has come for me to report progress.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr Speaker, the committee has considered the Employment Relations Amendment Bill and reports it with amendment. The committee has also considered the Accounting Infrastructure Reform Bill and reports it with amendment and divided into the following bills: Auditor Regulation Amendment Bill, Charities Amendment Bill number 3, Financial Reporting Amendment Bill, New Zealand Institute of Chartered Accountants Amendment Bill. The committee has also considered the Gambling Amendment Bill number 2 and reports progress. Mr Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The Employment Relations Amendment Bill and the bills divided from the Accounting Infrastructure Reform Bill are set down for third reading next sitting day. The Gambling Amendment Bill number 2 is set down for further consideration in committee next sitting day. The House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow.